I'm Trevor Herman. I'm a licensed counselor in Asheville, North Carolina. I have a private practice in town. I'm currently accepting new clients both in person and over Zoom. Today I'm going to talk a few minutes about why I use mindfulness in my practice with clients, and I use it in my own personal life as well. There are a lot of reasons to get into mindfulness. I've listed just a few, and I'll talk about them in some detail. Since I don't want my face or just a list to be up on the screen, we'll go ahead and move to a picture of my one-horned goat, Juniper. I think he lives in the present pretty well. So the things I like about mindfulness are that it's a very accessible, or to me, very accessible form of meditation. Many of us have a preconception about meditation that it requires perfect stillness and perfect silence and a blank mind, and perhaps wearing a robe and sitting in the lotus position, and even perhaps being able to control raindrops with our mind. That doesn't feel very accessible or realistic to me. But being able to do small practices, 5 or 10 minutes, or even 30 minutes, a few times a week, that does feel accessible to me. It's also accessible to me that I could simply be doing the practice sitting in a chair, or sitting in my car on break from work. Of course, not driving the car at the time, but simply stopped on purpose, paying attention to what's happening inside myself with kindness and curiosity and without judgment. And those are the underpinnings of any mindfulness practice, that we're going to notice ourselves on purpose, and in so doing, maybe change the way we talk to ourselves. We may change the narrative that we have inside, because we all narrate our own lives. We constantly have a monologue going inside. And oftentimes the monologue isn't very kind. We tend to say things to ourselves that we would never say to other people. And yet we say them to ourselves routinely. We may call ourselves stupid or some variation on that. And we probably wouldn't say that to someone else. And so mindfulness practice is not just meditation, it's noticing the way we interact with ourselves. And by noticing it, then we may have the option to change it. Other things I like about mindfulness, in part, is what I've already said. It can be fit into the day. It could be on a break from work. It could be during kid bath time, if your kids are old enough to give themselves their own bath. It could be fit into many little gaps during the day that we may otherwise pick up our phone and simply start scrolling, which is a big piece of why mindfulness is valuable. We constantly are being bombarded with messages on our phones, Facebook, Instagram, other social medias. When we're at work, we may have a medical record, or we may have other things that are beeping and dinging, messages coming in, crises that need to be addressed. And by having a mindfulness practice, we're deliberately inserting breaks into our day where we're saying we're just taking a brief break. We're not inaccessible. We're simply logged into ourselves for a few minutes rather than logged into all the other systems that we're logged into all day. By spending time with ourselves deliberately, we may get to like ourselves better. By changing that self-talk over time, it may change how we appreciate ourselves, and that may have real lasting effect. I think one of the most important things about mindfulness or other meditation practice is that it allows us to get out of the leaning into the future, worrying about what may happen, or the leaning back into the past, regretting things that maybe didn't go as well as we hoped. Those are kind of the roots, in some ways, of both anxiety and depression. Anxiety is the future focus, the uncertainty. Depression being the past focus, the regret. And by having a deliberate time during the day where we simply are in the moment with ourselves, inside of our bodies, experiencing with our 5 senses, it gives us a break from leaning into the future or into the past. And by having that break, we may just find over time that we're more able to live in the moment and less prone to get stuck in the past or in the future. I also really appreciate how flexible mindfulness is. There are many different forms of meditations and practices. YouTube is full of them. Obviously, I have a YouTube channel. I'm producing my own little mindfulness meditations for my clients to use. So there's such a variety, and that helps it be more accessible. And the whole message of mindfulness is that it's forgiving, because we're forgiving with ourselves when we're practicing. And I really appreciate that. So in a nutshell, that's why I use mindfulness in my practice and in my daily life. And I hope that's helpful for those that are thinking about starting a mindfulness practice and just looking for that extra reason why.